You're listening to Episode 3 on the missing persons case of Sandra and John Jacobson. You can find Episodes 1 and 2 by scrolling through the episodes on this podcast. You're listening to The Vault, a Forum Communications podcast covering true crime and general intrigue in the Upper Midwest. I'm Trisha Taurinskas. My original reporting on this story can be found at inforum.com. Just look for the Vault section. As Bismarck Police Sergeant William Connor attempted to piece together the final known days of Sandra and John, he kept circling back to the same question. What happened to her journal? Friends and family members say Sandra kept a daily detailed diary. That means it could shed light on what was going on between her and Alan. It could also resolve questions regarding her emotional and mental state at the time she went missing. But the initial investigator on the case wasn't concerned with getting his hands on that journal. Sandra's home was never searched. Despite pleas by her close friends and family members to secure the trailer, her belongings went unexamined.
It sure would have been nice to get our BCI, or which would be your BCA over there in Minnesota, our BCI involved to go get a search warrant, or we could get the search warrant, but they could secure that trailer in Center and do a search of that.
Just days after Sandra and John disappeared, Alan entered the trailer, and he walked out with an unknown set of items. Those familiar with the situation told investigators that he took nearly everything, including clothes, food, and random belongings. Alan said he didn't know his wife kept a journal. In fact, he claimed he never came across it, not even during the process of putting the trailer up for sale. The trailer was sold after Sandra and John vanished. As you'll recall, those close to Sandra said she believed she was days away from a divorce when she and her son went missing. She believed, however naively, that her husband was handling the paperwork. She was looking forward to moving on, but she did have concerns that Alan was going to try to gain custody of John. In 2004, Sandra's mother, Bernice, told Connor that her daughter had been visibly upset and concerned about that possibility on the night she disappeared. A close friend backed up that claim. Alan, however, told a different story. He said he and his wife were trying to work things out when she went missing. So, what was really happening? That's what Connor was trying to figure out. He attempted to track down any potential records of the initiation of a divorce procedure, a search that led him to multiple county courthouses. In the end, he found no evidence of an impending divorce. Alan's claim that he and his wife sought couples counseling through her state employment benefits package didn't check out. Despite obtaining a subpoena for the information, Connor wasn't able to confirm Alan's claims. The potential initiation of a divorce mattered for a number of reasons. According to Connor, Alan's family estate had been put in both of their names. Dividing assets, including land, would have likely been included in the divorce procedure. If Alan and Sandra had been divorced prior to her disappearance, Sandra's 16-year-old son would have been included in conversations regarding her assets. Without the divorce, the spouse is entitled to everything. I want to pause here for a second and give you some insight into this story, this investigation. When it's called for, we'll run a background check on a specific person for a story. In this case, we did so for Alan. That background check revealed something peculiar. It included an address, dated March 1996, for a rural area in North Carolina. Specifically, it registered an address for 983 Leonards Drive in Lumberton, North Carolina. It's a heavily wooded area. In fact, the land the address sits on is now owned by a timber company. We also ran a report on Sandra, and sure enough, that same address came up in her report. The North Carolina address stood out because Alan and Sandra had close ties to North Dakota, and they went back generations. There didn't seem to be any ties to the South. Close friends and family members said Sandra never discussed North Carolina. Understanding the North Carolina piece of the puzzle has proven difficult. Robeson County, the county in which Lumberton is located, doesn't have any land transaction records for that specific address. It is a rural road, but there are neighbors, and I've attempted many times through various avenues to contact those neighbors to see if they remembered anything going on there in the 90s. In one case, I did get in contact with a relative of a neighbor who told me they thought there used to be a trailer on that property, but they weren't sure, and we can't verify that. The reason I want to know more about the Lumberton address is because it could shed light on an aspect of the story that hasn't been explored. Why North Carolina? Did they own the land? Did they or Alan buy the land and then sell it? Or was it inherited by some long-lost relative? We do know that a lawyer from Mandan did reach out to speak with Sandra's parents after her disappearance about land that was in Alan and Sandra's name. At that time, the lawyer wouldn't disclose specific information to Connor, but Connor assumed it had to do with Alan's parents' estate in Mandan. So, without county records, we just don't know a lot about that Lumberton address. There is one person, though, who could answer questions about that address: Alan. But, as I've said before, he has not returned our requests to talk. Back in 1996, in an interview with Turnbull, Sandra's 16-year-old son claimed he saw his mother's wedding rings, days after she went missing, in a change container on a counter in Alan's home. When he saw the rings, it sent a chill up his spine. When Connor talked to him, he couldn't clarify that his mother had been wearing the rings when she disappeared, but he did wonder why they were inside his stepfather's home. Alan wasn't questioned about the rings the first time around, in '96. But he did tell Connor he wasn't entirely sure why he had the rings. The rings represented another detail of the case that proved difficult for Connor to clarify. In the 8 years following the disappearance, memories had faded, particularly for details related to whether or not Sandra continued to wear her rings. In the absence of the journal, Connor turned to another option that could point him in the right direction. He asked Alan to take a polygraph test for questions related to the case. Connor received a phone call a couple of days later from Alan's attorney, informing him that he was declining the test. There was one running theme present throughout the investigations into Sandra and John's disappearance, and it had to do with the state of her mental health at the time she went missing. While close family members said Sandra was experiencing a mental health crisis, they struggled to believe she would have taken her own life and the life of her 5-year-old boy, whom she loved deeply. She wasn't even known to raise her voice, so her loved ones couldn't believe she would cause him harm. In an effort to make sense of it all, investigators turned to those who knew her best. Among those interviewed was Vernon Nastrom, Sandra's ex-husband, who was also the father of her first child, the 16-year-old we mentioned earlier. In '96, Vernon told Turnbull that Sandra had been fascinated with end-of-the-world scenarios. When they were still together, she made a pact with him. If signs of the end of the world appeared, they would meet up and jump off the Memorial Bridge. The Memorial Bridge crosses the Missouri River, just on the street from Centennial Park. The pact didn't last forever, though. Sandra's beliefs regarding end-of-the-world scenarios came and went. Throughout the course of their relationship, she also came to believe that taking one's life wasn't the answer, as it meant one's soul would walk the earth forever. Heaven would be out of reach. Call logs show Sandra attempted to call Vernon in the hours before she went missing. Ultimately, he admitted that he had been on crank the day Sandra reached out to him, causing him to miss the call. Vernon did take a polygraph test to clear any suspicion that he was somehow involved in her disappearance. Roughly 1 year later, he was found dead along a rural road in North Dakota's Kidder County. An autopsy revealed he died from blunt force trauma to the head. His death remains an unsolved case. Vernon's story that Sandra had an on and off again obsession with the end of the world fell in line with what Alan had told both Turnbull and Connor. The theory also, somewhat, matched the story Sandra's family members told investigators in both 1996 and 2004, that they believed a third party was in the car when a distraught Sandra called hours before vanishing. In that call, she told the family member to kill themselves. She hung up without saying "I love you," which she had never done before with this specific person. Vernon's story was also consistent with a transcript of her phone call to the Bismarck Police Department in the hours before her disappearance. The transcript, included in the police report, displays a distraught woman who believed a loved one was in danger of sexual abuse at the hands of a demonic cult. Because she believed the ritual abuse was taking place outside the jurisdiction of the Bismarck Police Department, she was told there was nothing that could be done. A report written by the officer who took the call stated that Sandra was worried that a loved one was going to be killed by a cult. There was no mention of allegations of sexual abuse. The audio recording of that phone call was not placed in evidence. By the time Connor attempted to locate it, the tape had been deleted altogether. Here's Connor.
Yeah, I can't believe they destroyed that audio. I tried to find that audio and it was gone. And there's a lot of things that are different about those cases now. I don't think nowadays we would have destroyed that audio, because we never did have a body. We had no clear-cut evidence that she went in the river.
In the decades since Sandra and John went missing, their remains have not been discovered. Sandra's mother and father passed away without any closure related to their daughter and grandson's disappearance. As for those who knew and loved Sandra and John, they're still waiting for answers to questions they wish had been asked decades ago. Unlock more cold cases and crimes from the past at inforum.news/try. Get your first 3 months of unlimited access to our entire news network for only 99 cents a month. Take advantage of this deal at inforum.news/try. Forum Communications is proud to be part of The Trust Project. Learn more at thetrustproject.org.